businesses and companies that sponsor and help keeping it real stay on air. Here are a few we would like to thank.
Happy Monday out there. Thanks for tuning in. You're listening to the Jazzy Joy Keeping It Real show here at City World Radio in Manhattan, New York. So thanks for tuning in once again. Hope you've had a great weekend and continue to have a great week. It's a happy Monday. A little chilly today here in New York. I don't know. I'm here in the studio by my lonesome in terms of co-hosts, but of course we have our great engineer Jade. As always, she's here, so doing her great job. And all the way from North Carolina, we have T-Mac.
Good evening. Good evening.
I don't know what to call you, T-Mac.
Just don't call me late for dinner. Call me whatever you want. Just don't call me late for dinner.
I don't know what name. I used to say the man with the way with words, or the poet personified. Whatever, right?
I don't have any expectations around that. So call me whatever you want.
I think people don't know that about you. I'm not sure if they know that you're a poet. No, I don't think our listeners know that. But yes, see, you are a poet personified. So very good. I mean, maybe one day you'll recite some of your poetry for us.
Okay, I don't have a problem doing that. I have to dig some of it up.
You have to dig some of it up, and
yeah,
you know it's
I don't
amazing.
have it in memory. I write it. I don't memorize it.
It's amazing. When I was in junior, speaking of poetry, when I was in junior high school, I used to be a great poet, and I used to write poetry that rhymed. But then somehow, I don't know what happened, and I stopped, and then my sister Joanne...
That's what happened. You stopped. That's it.
But I don't know
what happened.
Well, I mean, I don't know why I stopped.
Your skills for poetry have not diminished at all.
I don't think I have it anymore. My sister Joanne picked it up, and actually she was published. And I never forget, because her teacher was jealous. Her English teacher was jealous because she was published in a magazine. And I'm like, how did that happen? How did she end up doing poetry? But she basically followed in my footsteps a lot. She's only a year younger, but she actually followed in my footsteps. She's teaching English as a second language, just like, and who would have thought? So she ended up pretty much following me.
Yeah, and she's, very high spirited like you are. That's what people don't know about you. You're very high spirited, and
I'm high spirited. I've never been told
high
that.
Spirit. Yes. Take it from me.
Well, that's a big secret, because I don't think people know that about me.
Well, you got a few interesting secrets. But
which you won't reveal. I hope what you won't reveal on air.
I will
watch what you say.
I will not delve into at this point. Right? But what is a fact is that you are a wordsmith. You're very good with words, and
well,
you
words.
On my toes, so.
That's my thing. Words.
Yeah. So and you can string them together very well. So poetry is just that, huh?
I'm a word, and this is I digress, but I thought about it today because I'm back at Queens Public TV, as you well know. For those of you out there, listeners who might not remember or don't know, I'm also an executive producer or a public access producer with Queens Public TV. But I'm taking the course again because QPTV went digital. And some of the stuff with the new system, I mean, they changed the whole studio and everything is digital. So I'm relearning, and I have to catch myself because once you're a teacher, you're always a teacher. And in the class, I'm a teacher. I'm like, wait a minute, you're not the teacher. I have to catch myself like there is a teacher in this course and you're not it. So, chill out.
In that realm and to that regard, once you're outside of your structured classroom, right, you still are a teacher or maybe opinionated. I don't know.
And sometimes people tell me, hey, look, I'm not one of your students. And I know you feel like telling me that, but you're too much of a gentleman. You don't say it, but I know you feel that way sometimes.
I try to keep my friendship points intact, right? So I'm not gonna violate any friendship code.
But I know you feel like that sometimes. Like, listen, gal, I'm not one of your students.
Sometimes you might. You correct me when I probably need correcting, and my ego might say that. But then when I stop and think about it, what you're saying is right. So I don't really have, any expectations of you doing it any particular way.
And I only correct you because I care about you and I love you. So I don't go around correcting people. I just want people to know that just because I teach English, I don't listen for errors, and I don't try to correct people when they talk.
No, I do not take it personal.
I do that.
As a matter of fact, I appreciate it because I don't want to get out there in the public or on the Jazzy Joy show and say something that's grammatically incorrect.
Because unfortunately, people judge you by how you speak. And if you speak grammatically incorrectly, they seem not to... I don't know if it's true so much today as it was many years ago, but still to a certain extent.
Depends on the realm. Depends on the realm, all right?
They're not going to put much trust in you if they feel you don't know the language. I mean, you're a native speaker and you can't speak...
Because they have what? They have expectations.
So we're going to segue into, that's a good segue into the, I like the way you slipped that in right there. Expectations, exactly.
I've said it 3 or 4 times in our dialogue, right? The expectations, right? And that's part of what we're talking about this evening, even though this is a refreshing deflection from that because
I digress. I do that all the time in my class and everything. I'm always digressing, but to get to the point, it's about expectations, right?
Yeah, and I think it's we laid some groundwork for that, and I think it's good. But I think recently I have been becoming more aware. As you get older, right? I didn't say old. I said older.
Yeah, I know you said older. You're not old. You're just older.
I'm just for the.
If that makes you feel better.
Well, that makes me feel better.
Well, the same like me. I don't want to feel like I'm old. I'm just older. That's it.
All right.
Throw that der in there.
But as I was saying, as you get older, you begin your hopefully if you have a variety of experiences and you kind of allow yourself to download those experiences unabridged by certain parameters. Or I hope I said that right. But I think that you begin to realize what is really relevant in this world. What is really, is significant. For instance, and that's why I have been, in the last couple of months or last year or so, really getting into this thing about expectations, right? Because people always have you, or really expect of you to act a certain way or to do a certain way, to be a certain way. Well, like you hear a real man or a gentleman wouldn't do this, or you don't do this in a relationship, or that. I mean, some of the things may have some credence in terms of agreed upon structure, but when expectations are very dangerous in my view, because it's about living up to what somebody else prescribes for you to do based on what they need, right? Or based on their emotional requirements. For instance, take relationships. Now, relationships
Well, relationships are full of expectations, and that's one of the big problems.
And that's why they a lot of times they go sour, because we are individuals, and we are subject to our individual journeys in life, our individual perspective. One of the things that I became aware of when I hear people talk about my man or my woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
That comes with all kinds of expectations, right? First of all, the whole thing about the my, right?
Right.
It's possessive. It's possessive. So you belong to me, and as a result, this is what you should be doing because you belong to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's very rarely articulated like a man or a woman that that I'm in a relationship with, or that I have a relationship with. People don't, they don't tend to say that, because that doesn't resonate in a control what kind of way. That whole thing about my this or my this. Even my friends, I've had people say to me, just because I didn't call regular, I stopped calling regular, you're my friend. How come you don't call me?
I lost a very good friend behind. I'm sorry to cut you off. I lost a very good friend. I mean, we were very close, working together, and she misunderstood because I didn't call her regularly, or I was very bad with the returning calls. And because of that, I guess she expected something else from a friend, a so-called friend. And, we just, the friendship just dissolved, and because she felt offended by it, because she didn't expect that that's what a friend should be like. A friend should call you. A friend should return your calls. And I have to tell you, I'm terrible with the phone. And probably you know that. Even as close as you and I are, sometimes, I'm just terrible.
Yeah, I may get annoyed, but I understand that it's about my anxiety and my need for to say what I want to say.
And it's not personal. It's just the way sometimes I'm just bad with. And my sister, my younger sister, is the same way. I don't know what it is, but we're just bad with telephone. I mean, we don't call people. We don't return calls. I mean, and text messages. We're just terrible.
Well, a lot of people assign worth to that. Well, if I'm worth something, you will do this.
Right.
This is directly related to my worth. This is how my worth is articulated by you, and that's not necessarily the case. I mean, sometimes I might not feel like talking. Right? That doesn't mean that I care about you any less, or that I don't consider somebody a friend, or sometimes I'm just in my own head, in my own space, and I don't feel like being social.
And sometimes I'm all talked out because that's what I do. I mean, I teach and I talk, and sometimes when I get home, I just don't feel like talking anymore.
And that's not but we're indoctrinated into thinking that is symbolic or something, right?
Well, we take everything personally. That's what it is.
But
it's you, but it's not you. Yeah.
I think that has a lot to do with indoctrination. When we come out of the womb, we're not thinking about expectations other than maybe a food or not even shelter, because we don't know that if you don't have shelter, you're going to get you're going to have a difficult time, or you're going to be negatively affected by the elements. You don't know that, right? You just only thing I think you expect is to eat when you're born. Right?
Well, I don't even know if you expect that. I mean, as a baby, I don't know if you expect it, but
at some point you're going to desire that, or you're going to crave that, or yearn for that. Right. And so it may not even be expectation, right? But as we progress through our journey in a given society, because things are propelled differently in different societies and social settings, right? In terms of the development of expectations. One of the things, I have a lack of understanding about is religion, all right? And the expectations that are associated with that, to such a degree that if you do not fulfill the tenets of a given religious order, then you have the punishment.
Right.
Punishment is like, okay, you don't fulfill the expectations, and this is extreme because those expectations are backed up by direct punishment or perceived punishment. Like the devil going to get you, or you're going to hell, or all this nature of consequence, right? And so I think that we evolve into and out of different issues or occurrences that are relative to perspective. And relative to expectations. Sorry. And it's just amazing to me to look into this.
But a lot of us think, I think just because we expect things to happen, we expect that they're going to happen. And that's what they have, the law of attraction. Like, if you expect good things to happen, then good things are going to happen. If you expect bad things to happen, then, so we think just by expecting things to happen, that they're supposed to happen, but they don't happen necessarily because we expect it. And I think you and I had a conversation a while back, and I told you, and I think you were quite surprised by it. I said, I think it was you. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Give it a shot.
But I think I told you, I don't expect anything from anyone, because then that way I'm not disappointed.
Yeah, you did. That's what you did.
I think we had that conversation, and I think you were taken aback by that statement. But that's what I feel. If I don't go in a relationship, especially, if I don't go into a relationship expecting anything, then if I don't get something, then I'm not disappointed. But if I expect you to do this and expect you to do that, and I don't get it, then I'm disappointed. So I don't expect anything.
But
whatever I get is what I get.
I kind of reacted to it in a way, or was a little taken aback by it, because I think that even though we understand the dynamic, right, we are indoctrinated. Right?
I mean, it's easy to say.
So to have that level of control, right? In terms of your emotions, in terms of your emotions around expectations, is like really admirable, right?
But some of the things I complain about, that I don't really live by it. I said it, but it's not easy. Things you've heard me say that no, I'm expecting something, so because it's hard not to.
Yeah, I don't think living in a particular society, you can't function without having some expectations. I think expectations are fundamental to a societal construct especially as it relates to control. All right?
Mm-hmm.
I think expectations are, are the result of a certain order of things, right? And and that's part of the indoctrination. Well, if you can't drink till you're 18, you can't, you become a woman at 18, or so you're expected to act just like a teenager until the date, the 12:01 a.m. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Of your 18th birthday, and then you become what the expectations change.
Well, I have to say that's for some people, or maybe even for most people. But I have to act like I was an adult even earlier than that. It's simply based on my physical appearance.
I have my perspectives about why, but I'm not gonna get into that. But
because I look like a woman, so they expected me to act like one. They expected that, and I had to live up to the expectations, even though I was a young girl and I was a young teenager. I had to act like I was a woman because that's what they expected, because that's what they saw.
Right, and then the contradiction was the expectations that man imposes, as opposed to what nature imposes. All right, and nature, as far as nature was concerned, you were a woman, right? That you were able to, once you got to a certain biological, you had certain biological realities taking place, right? You were able to bear children, and you became a woman. In the society, the expectations are that you have to download a certain skill set, right?
Right.
Before you're a woman, you have to understand certain things that society's parameters, and so that you can live up to certain expectations, that will qualify you to be a woman. But Mother Nature does not follow those guidelines. All right? So therein lies the contradiction, and a lot of times, men and women go through confusion, and that's why they say puberty is so strange, because you're being told one thing by nature and another thing by the society's parameters.
Right.
So the expectations around each one of those realities sometimes clash.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I want you to hold that thought there. If you want to chime in, the number to call is 646-690-2976. The lines are open, 646-690-2976. If you would like to chime in, you're listening to the Jazzy Joy Keeping It Real show here at City World Radio. And you can like us on Facebook. We're also on YouTube and Keep It Real. Facebook also, Keep It Real. And Instagram, keepitreal.nyc. So you can find us there. And so if you would like to chime in, please do call in. The lines are open. And we're going to take a little musical break at this point. And don't go away. We will be right back.
In my thoughts and dreams, you and I were just you are everything and everything else, and you are good to me. You live on faithfully. You are everything that I wish that I could be. Up in front, headlights, preaching wrong and right. You gathered ashes, you blocked off the flashes, and you are wonderful, giving me all the world in bits and pieces, so I could create the most.
All right, so we're back. You're listening to the Jazzy Joy Keeping It Real show here at City World Radio. We're coming at you live from New York. So, and T Mac, my co-host and co-executive producer, is all the way in North Carolina via telephone. So, we're doing the show on expectations this evening. So again, if you want to chime in and give us your thoughts on this subject, 646-690-2976. We would love to hear from you. The lines are open, so please feel free to call in. Now, I was looking at an article in Psychology Today, and it says expectations are premeditated resentments. I'm going to say it again.
Premeditated resentment?
Yes,
Premeditated
expectations
resentment.
are premeditated resentments. And I want to know what your thoughts are on that. What does that mean to you? And I'll tell you what they mean by that. Or do you want me to say what they mean by it?
I'll give you my, what I glean from that, right? Premeditated. First of all, premeditated expectations are premeditated. In other words, to give you what they're premeditated to give you for a bad situation. Expectations don't always turn out bad. Sometimes expectations are met. So if the expectations are met, is it still does that still fall in that same category? I don't know. What do they mean by that?
Okay, what they mean by it is that you're going to resent the person. If you're speaking in terms of relationships, you're going to start resenting the person who didn't meet up to your expectations. So if you have them and expecting that they're going to meet your expectations, then you're setting yourself up to be resentful. I mean, it doesn't always. It makes sense, but as you said, it can't. Sometimes things can work out, but a lot of times your expectations don't necessarily work out.
Yeah, a lot of times they don't. A lot of times they don't.
And a lot of times we think just because we expect them that they're going to happen, especially, as children, like they say, okay, we outgrow that. In the article, it says that children expect that just because they think it's going to happen or they believe or expect it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But we outgrow that. But they're saying, no, we don't outgrow it. We still think just because we think it's going to happen that it will.
We just modify it. I don't know if we outgrow it. We modify it and control it.
And they mentioned the law of attraction. That was a very popular concept, and you might have heard of The Secret, that all you attract things that you expect. If you expect negative things to happen, then negative things will happen. If you expect positive things, then positive. It doesn't necessarily work
I've
that
heard
way.
that, and I think, I take a little different slant on that. I mean, if you expect positive, negative things, you're going to tune into the negative things that happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like looking at the glass half empty or half full, right? If you expect negative things, then you're going to look at an occurrence from a negative lens, right? If you expect positive things, then you will probably focus on the positive thing in that same event. Right?
But they're saying that just because you expect positive things doesn't necessarily mean that positive things are going to happen. But that's what we believe.
Okay, no, I'll go for that. You can't, unless you have some kind of mystical power, right? Or some kind of connection to the order of the universe that we're not conscious of or not aware of. I do on some degree, believe in mind over matter. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we have mastered that as a species, as a life species. I think we have the ability of, according to my readings and my indoctrination, so to speak. I have come to understand that we only use a certain part of our mental capacity. We might use 1/10 or something of our mental capacity, and within that, that other 8 or 9/10, right, are different levels of possibilities that you can achieve. I've seen places like when you talk about savant, right? The people that just listen to music and just play it back, or do exceptional things.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times because they're lacking in one area, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're exceptional in another area. So those areas are there, right?
Right.
And being that they're lacking in one area propels their ability in another. But it couldn't propel that ability if it wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe on some level, we all have that. So, I mean, when you look at expectations from the point of view of making or impacting the reality based on those expectations, that's a in my mind, that's it can be a confusing, dual concept, all right? Like, okay, if I believe in mind over matter, then I can make things happen.
But I think that's the problem. That's what the article is saying, that for many of us, it's difficult to let go of the idea that expecting something to happen will make it happen. I don't know if that's necessarily so. Just because you expect it to happen doesn't mean it's going to happen.
No,
that's mind over matter.
Especially
what you're saying.
if you just expect if you expect it and don't do any work. That to me, that's synonymous to praying and then sitting back waiting, right? Because your expectations around that prayer means it's going to happen, right?
Yeah, that goes into prayer. People pray because they think that by praying it's going to make it happen because they expect that it's going to happen. But I mean, that was the whole thing with the law of attraction, that, okay, you put it out there and you think it's going to happen, it's going to happen. I don't know if that's necessarily
attraction. Attraction as meaning bringing something to you. Not the attraction between two entities.
Right, bringing something to you. The attraction of
bringing something to you. Okay, I just want to clarify.
Just because you're expecting it in your mind and you're putting it out there, that you're gonna attract it to you. I mean, to a certain degree, I do. Like if you're in the street and you're very fearful and you think somebody's gonna mug you or something's gonna happen to you, you attract that kind of energy. I truly believe that.
Oh yeah, you put out that kind of energy,
Mm-hmm.
and then
you expecting
it to happen. But is that about expectation, or is that about the energy you put out? Might be about expectation.
Well, the law of attraction has to do with expectation too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's partly, the law of attraction and expectation. But I think what happened with we have the tendency, according to psychology today, we have the tendency to pin our hopes for happiness. See, that's where we get into the problem, right? That's where we're going to get into.
Right.
We think our happiness, we pin our hopes for happiness on fulfilled expectations. So if we expect this and it's fulfilled, we're happy. And if we expect it and it is not fulfilled, then we're not happy. And so basing your happiness on expectations, a lot of people are unhappy.
Yeah, because sometimes those expectations, when you achieve those expectations, right? or what you're associating with that fulfillment. You achieve it, and then you don't get the fulfillment, right? And then that can result in depression. That can result in a lot of things of that nature, right?
Right.
Because your expectations are not met. And I think that's, we have to be very careful. Just like, we've talked about before, how the educational system is structured. You have expectations about getting a degree, all right? About, spending your money, going to a 4-year college or university, and then even maybe going on further into on a graduate level. You come out with certain expectations, all right? But those expectations cannot be met just by virtue of that, all right? That may give you greater access, but just by virtue of making achieving those standards, all right, it's not going to make what you expect to happen. All right, you have to put in the work. You have to do some things to bring some things to you to achieve those expectations.
Exactly.
You can't just say, well, I expect it, and I'm going to do this, and then and to me, that's the danger inherent in a lot of the ways we think and our decisions as it relates to our relationships, right?
And I think you want to bring it
to the institution of marriage, right?
Yeah, I think you want to bring it to relationships, how dangerous it is, right? Because I have a feeling you want to talk about
relationships, religion, primarily those two, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because those are the underpinnings of a lot of frustration, depression, disillusionment. People they build their whole fundamental reality on expectation.
No,
right?
I want to get into about relationships. I just want to let everybody know you're listening to the Jazzy Joy, Keeping It Real show here at City World Radio. We're coming at you live from Manhattan, and also live from North Carolina. I want you to talk about expectations, how you see it, how it can be a problem in relationships.
And do you have an expectation that I'm going to do that?
I suspect.
Okay.
I suspect that yeah, because it really.
I expect that if you do have those expectations, you have valid grounds.
I expect that's what you're going to talk about how it can influence relationships and how it could be a negative force in relationships.
Well, I think that the show that you've often heard that people were in what they considered good relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they get married, and they said, yeah, but as soon as we got married, everything changed, right?
Right.
As soon as we said the vows, everything changed. You hear that often. I mean, I do.
I've heard of it, and I've seen relationships go down. I mean, like they were together for 15, 20 years, and as soon as they got that piece of paper, that was it.
Because that paper comes full of expectations. You're expected to lose your individuality. You're expected to be blind. You can't look at another individual. You're expected to, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just talking about the expectations of it.
Mm-hmm.
You're expected to be monogamous, right? In certain cultures, right? You're expected to be monogamous. You're expected to do all these things. That's why you have that's why Maury and Steve, what's his name, Wilkos and Maury are rich because of the expectations not being met.
Right.
This whole thing about cheating and this is a cheater, and they got a show called Cheaters and everything. Because
Mm-hmm.
the expectation is that when you make a certain commitment, or when you say I'm going to be in a relationship, those other things, those other biological inclinations just vanish, right?
Yeah, they're supposed to. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, and then we use that as what's the determining factors of what our perspective of love and our vision of love is. And I have come to believe that I can love somebody dearly, right? It's a conscious decision I make to articulate that in terms of a certain kind of commitment. But even in that realm, that doesn't stop me from having a biological reaction when I see someone else, right? If you know what I mean. I just,
Yeah, I
and
know
that's
what you
what
mean.
that's that's fundamental to a lot of relationships, falling apart. But how could you love me and do that, right?
Right.
What? No. How could I go against my commitment and do that? Huh? It has nothing to do with love. It has to do with I made a commitment. All right.
Right.
And but and like I say, that's culturally indoctrinated, all right? Because in certain cultures, even in our Americans, even in the United States, as it relates to the Mormons or the Latter-day Saints, whatever that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Some of Latter-day Saints, which is Mormons, right? They have multiple partners, the men anyway, right? And that's a whole other issue. But the men have multiple partners, and it's cool. I mean, they don't have, because they don't expect that it's going to be another way, right?
Right.
And they're happy. And they call them sister wives and all this stuff, And in some instances, it has worked very well.
And they love it because it eases up the burden on one person. It's like one woman can't be everything. So, you have, you expect the one person to be all. No, this way, you be who you are. I mean, you are who you are, and you be. I mean, you are who you are, and the other person is who they are.
Who they are, and then when y'all come together, who we are. You become who we are, right?
Right. But some people can't.
When you make that conscious, decision to do that. But
some people can't see that, because we're not indoctrinated.
We can't see that because religion is a part of it.
Right.
The societal parameters impact on it. You have all these forces bearing down on those expectations, right? Or propelling and perpetuating those expectations, so that it's difficult to even look at any kind of other option. We're so indoctrinated in those those structures that we can't even, if you've ever talked to somebody that's like, just ultra religious, right? You can't even have a conversation with them about, the possibilities of another way of looking at things.
I know, because according to the religion, it's only one way to look at it.
But they expect when, that they can have the conversation with you, trying to say, well, this is what you should do, right? But, and that you should be open to that. I remember the Jehovah's Witnesses come to my house, and I would welcome them. Come on in, come on, let's talk. And I said, but let me tell you this. I believe what I believe as strongly as you believe what you believe. So, if you want to have a dialogue or a debate, we can do that. But if I'm not able to change your mind, what makes you expect that you can change mine?
Right. And another problem mentioned in the Psychology Today article is that unspoken expectations, and I could definitely deal with this when I was expecting things until I came to the realization, don't expect things. But when I was expecting things unspoken, it's like you're just supposed to know what I expect. And that can really ruin a relationship. It's guaranteed that it's going to be unfulfilled because somebody can't read your mind. I mean, you need to talk
or
about
don't have
it.
your experience. Don't have the benefit of your emotional experience.
So
you know what you expect.
So you should talk openly about, and then if they don't agree or you don't agree on it, then you know that you don't need to be together. But you openly talk about some of the things that you might expect.
Right, and I think that and if you don't agree upon it, then maybe you could find a middle ground at least.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't automatically mean you shouldn't be together, but it means that you have to keep the dialogue going, and you have to you have to work at it, and try to find some happy ground or some mutual ground.
Right, because communication is the key. You go around pouting.
Very important.
Like, a lot of times we go around pouting and the partner doesn't know what's wrong. Like, what is wrong? What are you, talk about it.
I have been guilty of that in some of my encounters,
and I have too, just pouting.
And, I have come to the conclusion that, there's a difference between intellect and emotion, but I have to, emotionally, I will go there, and then I have to catch myself and say, you know what, that's the result of your indoctrination. Try to look at it from a whole different vantage point, all right? And try to evolve out of that emotional indoctrination that you're coming from that fuels those expectations.
Or
right?
Even talk about it. It's like you did this and whatever. I didn't feel good about what it is that you said or you did, instead of pouting about it and expecting that they should know what's wrong. That's the mistake I've made many times. I'll keep my mouth shut.
We're running short on time, but I will say this. In my life, in terms of being a father, right? In terms of being a father, and my situation with my kids and how they came about and whatnot. I thought that I was a great father, right? I even got awards. I got on my job. They honor me for father of the year, of the month, or the year, whatever period of time it was, right? But then, I got a different reaction from my daughter, who wasn't a part of the household, right? And even though I interact with her often, she had expectations around what a father was that I did not, I did not realize, right? And consequently, it kind of impacted her self-worth, her perception of her self-worth.
Wow.
My father was not there, right?
Right.
Wasn't in the household,
And that's what she expected. You're the father. You should be there in the household.
We had to talk a long time about that. I didn't. What I perceived to be, and the expectations I had around it, are different than the expectations you had around it, because my reality was different when I was a kid. My father was there to a certain point, and then he died, and then I didn't. I kind of floundered as far as,
But you were out there doing your thing, and I guess the relationship wasn't the same with the mother. So you weren't there with the mothers. So you weren't going to be in the household because the relationship was over.
Well, I didn't fulfill the family expectation.
Exactly.
Which she connected the father's expectation to. Even though I would get her, she was, we would go out, we would do things. I would come and get her at least every other week, and spend the weekend or do things. That was not sufficient.
Right, because she expected you to be there. That's not
what her indoctrination told her to expect.
You should be there every day.
Right. And I said, well, that doesn't me being there or not being there doesn't define my love for you. All right. And I had to, beat that kind of, emotionally beat that into her head, and still have to reinforce it from time to time. And she's in her 40s.
And I just want to say also before we go that just because I mean, as the article states, it's unrealistic to think that merely communicating your expectation clearly is going to get people to behave the way you want. I mean, it helps, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to still do what you expect them to do.
Right.
But sometimes you need to communicate it. At least they
But
know.
If they're not so inclined, all right? Because you articulated it well, they may understand it, but they may not be able to fulfill it.
Right.
Emotionally.
Exactly.
Definitely. And then you have to give them space for that, right? Well, what is it about that you can't fulfill, or what does it mean if you don't? Does that mean you don't care about me, or does it mean you have a different perspective?
All right. So we're gonna have to hold it there. It's time to go. I mean, I don't know where the time goes. It ends so fast. But follow us on Facebook and at Keep It Real, and also on Instagram at keepitreal.nyc. And thanks for tuning in to the Jazzy Joy Keeping It Real show. And until next week, peace.
Peace.
We all want our kids to grow up safe and healthy, so we show them how, and we tell them with honest conversations that let them know what we expect. That's especially important when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. Kids need to know the dangers and how to avoid them. And when it comes to pain medications, opioids, they need to know that they should never be taken without a prescription and never shared with friends or family. It's dangerous and illegal. So talk with your kids, because when you talk, they hear you.
Hi, Grandma. Can Nina come over for dinner?
Sure. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
If anyone ever does, I want you to say, no, I have too much respect for my family and I don't want to get in trouble.
I promise, Grandma.
They really do hear you. For tips on what to say, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
Yo, what's going on? Y'all listening to Sky's Crescent Radio, and here's what's coming up. On the first Sunday of the month, we have the Poet Podcast with Dale Novella. On the second Sunday of the month, we have the Soul Tree Spotlight with Earlene Stephen. And we also have Keeping It Funky with Troy Weeks. On the third Sunday of the month, we have Boozy News with Supreme Bars. And on the fourth Sunday of the month, we have What's Really Good with Jeanette Berry and Clout Dealers with The Label Noir. And every Sunday at 7, we have Can We Not with Evan Combis. Peace.
It's hard to miss a day of work, but it's easy to spread influenza. Stay home if you get sick. It's the flu season. For more information on symptoms and treatment, visit mdhflu.com.